Mute. Mute.
Sorry, everyone. That's because I muted myself. I do apologise. Welcome back to the third tier show. It's Monday, the 22nd of March, and thanks for joining us as we discuss all things League One. Tonight, Matt and I are joined by two very special guests, but I'll introduce Matt first. Matt, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, mate. Yeah, it's been a decent week again. 2 good results, 2 good performances. A little bit frustrating at Saturday, but yeah, if someone had said, can you take 4 points from Doncaster and Lincoln, I'd have probably bitten their arm off last Tuesday morning.
Yeah, 2 tough matches, and yeah, like you said, 4 points. And this week we're joined by 2 special guests. So first and foremost, I'll introduce Sean. Sean, welcome to the third tier. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good to be on.
Good. You've had the luxury of watching sort of live football. I know it's not the same, obviously, without fans in the stadium, but, you know, how's it been actually watching live football inside stadiums?
Yeah, it's been good. A different perspective, obviously, hearing the players on the pitch without the fans. It's quite interesting to hear. For example, at Blackpool, Chris Maxwell, the captain, is very vocal, and it's something that you don't obviously always think about having a keeper as a captain. I finally saw a win after 10 draws in a row as well. So it was just nice to get someone actually giving me somewhat of an entertaining game. But yeah, it's been a good experience.
Awesome. And next we introduce Gabriel. Gabriel, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Tom. It's great to be on the show. I just wanted to say, I like to think I'm reasonably knowledgeable about League One as it is. I just hope, as a Birmingham fan, I don't become that bit more knowledgeable about League One next season. But thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
No, yeah, you're more than welcome. So you call yourself an EFL pundit. That's, I said, a man of many talents, but you just said EFL pundit. So talk to the listeners and the viewers about sort of what you do and introduce yourself to them.
So a few years ago, I kind of started writing about EFL generally because I think that I felt there are a lot of well-supported clubs in the EFL that maybe weren't really getting any attention from the mainstream media. So set up a website and then started writing for other websites about the EFL and EFL teams and stuff like that. And then more recently, I've started doing some video content like this. So really enjoy just following the EFL and the ups and downs of it. It's been great fun. Yeah.
So, well, it's been a busy week in the EFL with all the news. So we'll get straight into the news. For those that don't know, obviously, the Cowley brothers got introduced at Portsmouth this week, getting a win against Ipswich to sort of kick their careers off. So Cowley started at Braintree, made a very decent name for himself, getting into the playoffs. Then made a very good impact on Lincoln, where he managed to get 1.86 points per match. He got them from non-league all the way through to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup and then to League One. And as they say, the rest is history. He managed 95 games for Lincoln, drawing 42 and only losing 39. What's your opinion, Sean, on the appointment of the Cowley brothers at Portsmouth?
I think it's a great appointment, really. I think once that job came available, they were going to be the one and only names that mentioned, the Cowley brothers, and obviously they've now taken the reins. I think most importantly, the thing with Portsmouth, with Jackett's time there, has been that when it's come to the final hurdle, when it's come to the big games, that's where he sort of fell down. And I think the Cowley brothers thrive off of that sort of environment. I think as well it'll give the likes of Harness more freedom to play. I think Jackett was too reserved and regressive with his style of playing. I think it left those types of players like Ronan Curtis as well sort of not playing to the best of their abilities because they've not got the freedom to play. I think the Cowley brothers are well aware of the freedom to play and the freedom to express while also being disciplined at the back. I think it's the perfect recipe for them to be able to make a push for the final end of the season.
Yeah, I think the strength and depth they've got, like you said, with the players, I don't think Kenny Jackett was anywhere near getting the best out of them. He got the job at Huddersfield. He did keep them up, and then he got sacked. Gabriel, did you think that was quite harsh?
I did at the time. I think with Danny and Nicky Cowley, they want a reasonable say in recruitment, and I think maybe that was quite a big part of their exit at Huddersfield, where they wanted to go down a more of a head coach, director of football type of situation, if you like, and maybe that wasn't something the Cowleys wanted. So, it's talked about as something where Huddersfield have sacked the Cowley brothers, but I certainly don't think it's down to the coaching ability of those the brothers, because they're meticulous in their work. I feel like they're very adaptable in their work as well, and I think you can see that as well in the win over Ipswich. lots of people worrying about Portsmouth in terms of their options at top, both their main strikers, Marcus Harness and not Marcus Harness, Ellis Harrison and John Marquis, both absent, and yet they still managed to win 2-1. So yeah, I think it's a really good appointment for them, and I'm really excited to see how that era at Portsmouth plays out.
Yeah, I think it was a decent win against, I'm going to say, an average Ipswich side, to say the least. But just to settle down and get that first win is going to be really important for their playoff push. Matt, your opinions on the appointment? I personally think it's a decent one, and is going to get a lot more out of them than Kenny did.
Yeah, I can only echo what's been said. I think it's a brilliant appointment, and like Sean mentioned, I think as soon as it became available, they was after the Cowleys. Really, I know Daniel Stendhal was mentioned for a while, but it seemed that Cowleys were the number one target, and I think it's a really good fit. I'm just interested to see how they set up, because obviously they were quite direct at Lincoln. I've had this chat with a few people on social media over the weekend, and I think Gabe caused all of that and sat back and ate his popcorn and enjoyed himself afterwards. But it's. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like we mentioned, there's a couple of players that you'd probably say in terms of strikers a first choice that didn't even feature at the weekend. I'm not sure whether they were injured or just not selected, but it's a very good win. And it's Paul Cook at Ipswich probably hasn't hit the ground running as much as he'd have liked, but they've still got good players at the same time. And the good thing for Pompey was that they came from behind as well. And I think that shows that they want to play for Danny Cowley. I'm not sure they were still playing for Kenny Jackett as much as they maybe could have been. And yeah, it's a really good come from behind victory. And just touching on the Huddersfield reign as well, I think it was something to do with behind the scenes things that caused them to leave, wasn't it? And I think working in tricky conditions, I think they won a third of their games, which wasn't a disaster. And he stepped up to the Championship, and he's gone back down a level, but he's gone back down a level to a very big club traditionally. And I think Portsmouth now have probably got a good chance as anyone to gate crash that top six. I think the top two is probably beyond them this season, but even if they don't go up, I think next season they'll have a full summer to get their own stamp on it really, really well, and then they'd probably have to be favourites to win the league.
Yeah, you said they won a third of their games at Huddersfield. Yeah, so his career at Huddersfield is 13 games, drawn 11 and lost 16. He took over from a difficult situation. They beat West Brom, I think, on the last game of the season. I think it was 2-1, and then straight after that he sort of left. So he did a cracking job for them, and a lot of people remember him for his time at Lincoln. But he sorted Huddersfield out, in my opinion, when he took over from there. Gabriel, we just had a little nice message here for you. Tangerine Georgie says, "Can I say Gabriel tweets? Oh, poetry in motion. What a bloke."
What I do.
Now moving on from Portsmouth, obviously there's another managerial appointment, Nigel Atkins, and at Charlton, should I say? Sorry. Gab, we'll start with you. What was your sort of? It was kind of an out of blue appointment, wasn't it? There was some talk in the background, but then it just randomly got announced. So, what was your opinions on it when you first saw the news?
Yeah, I think Nigel Adkins is a really good manager. We've talked about how the Cowleys have plenty of potential, and I think that's a great appointment for Portsmouth. I think it's an equally good appointment for Charlton, because he's just got that positive energy about him, hasn't he? He's won back-to-back promotions with two different clubs at Scunthorpe and Southampton, which I think is an achievement, although a fair while ago now. You can't sort of look beyond that. Took Hull into the top half of the Championship, which, given the issues at Hull and how managers there have struggled, I think that's a pretty good achievement. Didn't quite work out for him at Sheffield United and maybe to an extent Reading, but I don't know if you look at his social media on mornings, and he just gives me a lift. He makes me smile, that guy, and that's what I like about him. So I just think he's going to lift the mood around the place. And although Bowyer's exit wasn't a sacking, it was actually my team, Birmingham, kind of poaching him. Maybe there are a little bit of suggestions that maybe his time at Charlton was going maybe a tiny bit stale there, and I think Adkins and his positive energy might just give the place a lift.
It's brilliant that you said that, because Sean was saying on the Seasiders Patreons group that if this means that's the end of Nigel Atkins' inspirational talks in the morning, I'm not happy about the appointment.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So yeah, he had his long managerial career, really, spending sort of 4 years at Scunthorpe. Then he took over at Saints, then moved on to Reading, and like you say, Sheffield United wasn't his finest hour. And then finishing up at Hull before this job. But at Scunthorpe, he went from manager to from physio to manager. And as you say, he went to the promotion. He got promoted to the Championship twice, which was a huge achievement at the time, especially for a club like Scunthorpe. Don't you agree, Sean?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's got an interesting dynamic coming into it as well. I know he's big on sports psychology and the sort of the modernised approaches to the game, judging by what he's been saying recently on social media and things like that. So it's, as Gab said, I think Bowyer had pretty much reached the ceiling with Charlton. I think it was probably inevitable that if not now, then it would have been at the end of the season. He probably would have ended up moving on anyway. And Adkins there, as you say, can give him another push. And I think they've got the squad there to really give it another push, because you've got three players there, Connor Washington, Jaden Stockley, Chuks and Ike, have all got double figures this season. They share the goals around the team. They've got lots of quality in that side. And if you can get the best out of them, then there's absolutely no reason why they can't have a push for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, we'll finish up with you again. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by this thing. I think if you strip back all the abilities and the promotions and all that, and Nigel Atkins, his CV stands up in terms of EFL managers over the last 10, 15 years. I get that entirely. But I just think it's going to be really interesting to watch, because he is a polar opposite to Lee Bowyer, who was very intense and almost came across as moody and a bit like a sulky child when they got beat. But whereas Nigel Atkins goes completely the other way. Be interesting to see whether he sent poor old Akin for Mayweather an inspirational message on Sunday morning after his house Saturday afternoon. But that's probably not the best way to sort of endear yourself to the new gaffer in the first hour of your first game while he's watching on. But it happens. That's the reason they play in League One, isn't it? And he'll learn from it, and he's probably got the right manager in Adkins, to be fair, for that sort of thing. Whereas if it was Bowyer, he'd have probably come out and he'd have got absolutely obliterated in the press afterwards, or he might have blamed Steve Evans, Lee Bowyer, to be fair. But no, I think it's a really good appointment, all jokes aside. I think, like Sean touched on, they've got loads of good players. The strikers, they all pose a different type of threat. Anike is a big lump, but he can run in behind. Washington's been really good. Stockley, I think it is, who coming on loan from Preston's been decent enough. He scored against us a few weeks ago and he's got good aerial ability. But even further back, you've got people like Gilby can't even get in the side, and he was very good for MK Dons last season. Forster Kasky. It's just a good side, isn't it? The only thing that concerns me in terms of them and the playoffs is I think they lack a bit of pace defensively. Chris Gunter's probably coming towards the end of his career, and you just, when we played them, you just feel you can get at them quite easily. And I know they went on that horrible run at the Valley where I think they went sort of 8 on the bounce, conceding at least twice at home, and that's definitely not going to get you in the playoffs. So if Atkins can sort of rectify that, attacking wise, they've got as good a chance as anyone of sneaking into the top 6.
I completely agree. Les has just come in with a comment. I love the chant when Scunthorpe went to Chelsea in the FA Cup. You've got Mourinho, we've got our physio. Quality chant, that. Very original as well. Yeah, I think, Gab, just touching upon something in the Championship, which you don't usually do on this show, but how was your feelings on Bowyer becoming your manager? Obviously won his first game. Like Matt said, every single sort of post-match he had with Scott Minto, he tends to be blaming someone else. I mean, I know they're not the worst side in League One, but when we played them, they were absolutely appalling, 1-3-0, when they just weren't up for it. Whether they weren't playing for Bowyer, I don't know. But what's your thoughts around sort of him becoming your manager, and do you think he'll do a good enough job to keep you up?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot more positivity around Blues at the moment. He just seemed to have that connection with fans. I think partly because he was part of the League Cup winning side as a player in 2011. That doesn't count for everything, but I don't think he counts for nothing either. And I think he's someone that fans want to get behind. He's someone who knows the importance of supporters and things like that. So I just think when he first took over at Charlton, he showed that belief in his players. And I think he showed a little bit of passion as well, which is something we've seen at Birmingham. So maybe at Charlton, as his time has gone on, I think he's someone who relishes being the underdog. And maybe he does certain things to kind of create a siege mentality at times. And maybe as things have gone on at Charlton, that style of management hasn't stuck in the same way. And I think that as Thomas Sangard came in and allowed for lots of investment late in the summer, Charlton haven't really been underdogs as they have been for much of Bowyer's reign. They've really been a team that's expected to win. So in some ways, they almost think that it'd suit him coming into a relegation dogfight. And he's made a positive impact. Great performance against Reading in his first game in charge, although this is a League One game. And even in the Watford game, Blues had the chances. So hopefully he'll keep us up, and we won't be joining you next season, but I'll still be here to join you for these chapters about League One, which is a wonderful division.
Awesome. Josh has put in a bit worried about Brian. A legend player doesn't always mean a decent manager, but we'll see how they get on in the near future. Moving on from the managers, Matt, you want to go through some? Well, we're going to talk about the results now because it's been a crazy couple of sort of game weeks and some big results to talk about.
Yeah, we'll go back to obviously last Tuesday was the first set of fixtures since we last spoke, and there was the big results. Obviously, completely biased. I'm going to say the standout one last Tuesday was Gills going to Sincilbank and absolutely slapping Lincoln City off the park 3-0. Brilliant performance from the Gills. Charlton, first and last game for Johnny Jackson before Nigel Atkins come in. That'll give him heart. The fact that they came from 2-0 down. If you're a Bristol Rovers fan, though, you're probably thinking we're banging trouble here. Joey Barton's not getting a tune out of that team, and he's come out today and absolutely caned our former skipper Max Amar in the press, and I think that might be the end of Max Amar's time at Bristol Rovers. Unfortunately, looking at other results, Oxford picked up a really big win against Doncaster, but then didn't back it up at the weekend. MK Dons, after a sticky patch, picked up. They won again, beat Plymouth. Blackpool and Burton 1-1. Peterborough, probably a good time to play Pompey before Danny Cowley officially took over, and they picked up a 1-0 win, which was good for them. I think if that had been after Cowley, maybe Portsmouth might have got something, and the gap between them two is a bit closer, so that's a good win. And Fleetwood was the other standout for me. I know Ipswich probably haven't improved as much as I'd envisaged after Paul Cook came in, but that was still a good win for Fleetwood. So Gabe or Sean, what did you think in terms of standout performances Tuesday night last week? What was your standout result? Go to Gabe first if we want.
Sure, shall I go to Gabe? I know you said you were biased, Matt, but I think I would probably go along with that in terms of Gillingham, because I thought that maybe Liam Bridcut coming back for Lincoln would be quite a big factor for them, but it actually hasn't had as big an impact on results as maybe you would have expected. And I think to go there and win 3-0, I think is really impressive. And I think people talk about the style of football that Gillingham play under Steve Evans. I think sometimes the quality that Gillingham have goes unnoticed. I think you've said a few times, Matt, that if Jordan Graham's fit, he plays, and as a right winger, I think you'd have to go a long way to find someone better at this level. Carl Dempsey, I think you'd have to put in the mix for one of the best midfielders in the league. I think maybe Cundy's made an impact since coming into the side. Verdane Oliver's been a brilliant acquisition as well. So really big win for Gillingham, that. And I think the form has put you into the playoff mix, which I think when I did a Periscope with you a month or so ago after the Peterborough game, I think we were saying that, you'd do well to finish in the top half this year, probably unlikely to push for the playoffs. But that result at Lincoln is going to give you loads of confidence.
Yeah, and Sean, what did anything stand out for you? Maybe not best performance, but maybe surprising result or something, if we just look at it in a different way?
Yeah, I think one to point out really is Fleetwood's 2-0 win against Ipswich, because obviously Paul Cook came in. I think most people expected Ipswich to sort of have an instant bounce with the quality that's in that squad. I think we know for a while that Paul Lambert's been underperforming with Ipswich, and it's all sort of come to a sour end. And Simon Grayson's gone into Fleetwood again. Low expectations for him on the opposite scale, really. And then he's gone in and made them really defensively sound. But they've also got a dynamism to their play and adaptability to their play that I think Grayson sides of recent times haven't really had. And I think if you look at the likes of Jed Garner coming in and scoring goals for them, Carl Vassell's been such a handful up front since he's come back in. Obviously, they've lost Paddy Madden to Stockport. I think picking up that 2-0 win there, obviously we'll go on to the result that happened most recently with Fleetwood, but to keep picking up these sorts of victories for Grayson is really just surprising, and it keeps going on, and you've got to think he's now well in a position to keep that job beyond the summer.
Yeah, because obviously we have Ben normally on the show, but he's unavailable tonight. And he said, I think a few weeks ago when Grayson had first come in, didn't he, Tom, that he wasn't a big fan and he thought it was going to be boring and sort of undynamic football. But he's really changed his tune and his opinion over the last few weeks. And I think we've said before that the season at the moment, because we're playing Saturday, Tuesday so much, everything just accelerates so much quicker than in a normal season. And I think Ben's all for Simon Grayson at the moment. I think he's almost forgiven the fact that he used to manage Blackpool as well.
Yeah, you're spot on. I think, Yeah, when he got asked by one of the viewers, would you like Grayson permanently? He just put his head in his hands and was quite upset about that comment. And he's been persuaded a little bit by the Pool fans, because under Grayson, and I'm sure the viewers will agree if you get your comments in, it was some of the worst football, if not the worst football, for years and years and years. And unfortunately, didn't have a clue, but. As you've alluded to, we played them the other day. They were really well set up. Hill was superb at the back, and it was a really interesting game to watch. There was no goals, but Bastel was a handful for us, and they defended valiantly as well. And I think a draw was fair on the day. And he's got a tune out of them, and he's changed their formation a little bit. As you said, they've just lost Madden, but Bastel sort of stepped up a little bit, and they're scoring goals all over the pitch as well. So Grayson will be happy from what he's taken over from. Whether he goes into next season or not as their manager, who knows? I don't know. I could tell, but financially, I think they probably will keep him, and he'll be happy to settle there as well.
What I would say, if I can, is I think this is quite an important time for Grace in his career, because I think 5 years or so ago, you would have said, who's the best manager in League One? Who's the manager that's almost the closest thing to guaranteeing promotion from League One? And you'd say Simon Grayson. He did it with Blackpool in his first spell, did it with Huddersfield, did it with Leeds, and did it with Preston. And then since going from Preston to Sunderland, who were an absolute basket case at the time, failed at Sunderland, and then had a spell at Bradford, short spell, didn't go particularly well, didn't quite see eye to eye with the owners. I think in those two jobs you could kind of understand it because there's issues at those clubs at the time, but then Blackpool, I think, as you mentioned, Tom, the Blackpool job came at the time when Simon Sadler had taken charge, so there was stability there at boardroom level, and he couldn't get things right. There was that reliance on Feeney and Nandwile as the only route to goal. So you do wonder whether Grayson was kind of running out of ideas, and that would have been the concerns I would have had when he first took the Fleetwood job. But he's proving me and obviously Ben wrong so far.
Yeah, you're right to point that out. I think Sadler's actual quotation was, or for the sort of the message that came out of Blackpool, is we had no choice, because it was just a mess game after game, and ultimately he decided it for Sadler that everyone came to a mutual agreement that wasn't right, and now we've got a completely different manager on a different end of the spectrum in terms of his first managerial job. So it's quite interesting the disparity between the two. But yeah, we move on.
Yeah, there was one game Wednesday night as well, wasn't there? I forgot that actually.
Yeah,
that was Accrington at home to Sunderland. Obviously, that wasn't listed on the Tuesday night fixtures. They played Wednesday because of the stuffed crust pizza final at the weekend. A really good win away to Accrington. Accrington that are just sort of clinging on to the coattails of them teams that are still trying to force their way into the playoffs. For me, I don't think it will happen. I just think they're going to run out of steam essentially because they've got such a small squad. But they're having a fabulous season under John Coleman anyway, Accrington. But for me, Sunderland probably the most informed side in the division at the moment, and a pretty comfortable 2-0 win, which is probably not a game that they'd have won as comfortably, if at all, last season or the season before under Phil Parkinson and or Jack Russ. It'd have probably ended up 1-1 because that was their favourite result for about 2 seasons solid, wasn't it? But then we move on to last Saturday, and there were some really good games again. Just getting them up on the screen now. We've already spoken about the Cowleys opening up with a good 2-1 win over Ipswich and coming from behind as well after James Norwood had opened the scoring. So that was a really good start for them. Fleetwood, that Sean touched on, really good in the week. And then with the complete opposite, unfortunately, at the weekend. But Swindon have got good players offensively, and you have to remember that. And I think they changed their system. So credit John Sheridan a little bit, because I know he's been under the cosh, and I'm a Gillingham fan, so I'm meant to hate Swindon. But I think he changed the system, and he went with a front three of, I think it was Jack Payne, Brett Pittman, and the lad who scored, is it Scott Twine? Got both goals. So yeah, in terms of a front three, if you need to score goals to get yourselves out of trouble, I think that's as good as, anything in the bottom half at least. It's not as good as stuff that's going to get you in the top 6 or the top 2, but it's not a bad front trio if you're trying to score goals and get yourself out of trouble. So that was a really good away win for Swindon, and a clean sheet of doing the world of good as well, because they've been defensively shocking all season. Bristol Rovers look entrenched. I don't know if Sean or Gabe or you, Tom, agree. I think it's a 6-team battle, isn't it, now for relegation? I don't think anyone else is going to get dragged in. I think it is that bottom 6. It'll be 4 from them. Out of them 6, I wouldn't like to guess. I've changed my mind every week, so I'm not even going to try and hazard a guess who's going to go down at the moment, because such as the magic of League One, if that's the right description. I'd imagine it's not if you're one of them 6 teams, but everyone seems to be beating everyone, and it changes on a sort of 3-day rota at the moment because we play Saturday, Tuesday. So Northampton had picked up, and then they lost at home to Crewe. Sunderland drew 1-1, but it wasn't a Sunderland 1-1 draw. It was a really good game by all accounts, what I saw on the Quest highlights and what I read up on social media. And I thought Sunderland, were good to win that after watching Lincoln last week against us. I thought Sunderland would win that comfortably. But it's a credit to Michael Appleton and his team. And they got to play a team that plays the right way, so then they can forget about the result against us, which didn't count if you listen to their interviews last week. Accrington back to winning ways against Wigan. Wigan, for me, I'd love them to stay up. I think it'd be a wonderful story because they've had to go through so much over the last few years. And last season, Paul Cook had them, I think their form was in the top 6 in the Championship after the restart and ended up getting relegated because of administration and mismanagement. Wimbledon, still kicking and screaming, but they're drawing too many, not winning. Had a helping hand, like I say, from Charlton. That was 2-2. That looked a decent game. Burton's winning run, unbeaten run, finally came to an end. So credit to Russell Martin and MK Dons again. Shrewsbury picked up a really good point against Hull. Tom, you can talk about Oxford Blackpool.
Yeah, best performance of the season, in my opinion. I think from start to finish, we actually started how every single Blackpool fan wanted us to see from the kickoff. We weren't obviously as good as Man City, but it was the Man City-esque in terms of closing down every single player that touched the ball for them and forcing them into mistakes. Set pieces were exceptional, which hasn't been the case this season. Although we scored a few corners, they've just been awful in terms of delivery. Maybe for every 7 or 8 corners we've had a good opportunity, but spot on, 2 set pieces, 2 goals. And for me, it was just nice to see us play one striker, but play a system which enabled us to show what Critchley and Blackpool's all about. Defensively, brilliant, although they had a couple of good chances we expect from a good Oxford side with some decent players. But yeah, for me, best night of the season, and we have beaten Hull and we're beating Portsmouth this season. And it was just nice to see picking up a good performance, and we'll show what we can do when we've got such a hard run coming up. So yeah, it was just a pleasure and breath of fresh air to see. Sean, you were at Aki. How did Aki play? Because I know you were a bit worried about them, but they got a good victory in the end.
Yeah, I think that was pretty massive for them, to be honest. Obviously, they're missing Colby Bishop and Joe Pritchard at the moment, and it was kind of, you were looking at it and thinking they might really tail off at the back end of the season with that small squad. I know I was at John Coleman's post-match presser at Fleetwood, and he was saying that he was worried about the fatigue in the squad and the size of the squad, and that he didn't know how much longer this would last. Now, obviously, he's losing Dion Charles to Northern Ireland international duty. So that'll be a big loss in the next couple of games, particularly with Colby Bishop not coming back yet. I'm pretty sure Joe Pritchard is going to be fit for the weekend. If not, then the game afterwards. But they were really convincing. Obviously, there was that early Callum Lang goal after a mistake at the back, but it was good for them to rebound from that very quickly, and it showed their resilience really as well. And I think with Wigan as well, obviously we were talking about how we'd like to see them stay up. I think Callum Lang is a superb addition for them, particularly with Carl Joseph out at the moment. Obviously, he came back from Scotland, his time in Scotland, and he's been scoring for fun since he's come back. And I think that Wigan have a really good chance of staying up, despite obviously that 3-1 loss. They did look good and they looked dangerous from set pieces, and they were so hard working as a side. I think the thing with Wigan is you can't simply turn up and expect to turn over Wigan. You have to be right on it, else they will capitalise on your errors, capitalise on your mistakes, because they're such a hard working side.
Yeah, you completely agree. And although we beat them 5-0 when we played at Bloomfield Road, they still caused us a few problems. And it was, like Matt said, we'll talk about the relegation battle in a minute, but I'd like them to stay up, even though they're relatively local rivals. It's going to be a good story, and with new owners next season, who knows what they can do. Gab, MK Dons put a run to the machines that are Burton. My opinion on this, I think when Blackpool played some football on Tuesday, we actually kept the ball on the floor and not played for 40-yard passes to a 6-foot striker. They just let that up all half. But as soon as we put the ball on the floor, they tend to struggle with it. And for me, Russ Ball or Russell Martin's football, they want to play. He knows he wants to pass it. Do you think it was a case of they outpassed them, they out-footballed someone like Burton, and they weren't used to maybe playing teams that do that?
Yeah, I think they've got a really good side, to be honest. MK, they've got lots of really strong midfielders. I think some of the midfielders they've signed almost through necessity because of injuries to Lou Thompson. He came back into the substitute bench. That's the squad last time out, got a run out. They've also got David Kasumu, who's been out injured, and he's a really talented young player. But I think the injuries to those players has kind of forced Russ Martin towards signing the likes of Matt O'Reilly and Josh McEachran, who's, I mean, McEachran was talked about as being Chelsea's future at one point. He's always had the technical ability, and maybe certain things have kind of held him back a little bit. But at League One level, I think he's going to be a real asset. And then you're looking at players like Matthew Sorinola. You saw the 3 assists that he got in one of their previous home games, and yeah, with that right-footed quality and his deliveries, and then you got Scott Fraser sort of overlapping on the left, and the experience of Cameron Jerome up top. I think they've got some really good players. So I think with MK Dons, they uh, probably a bit too late to make much of this season, but I certainly think that they're going to be a really exciting side to watch at this level next year. And on top of that, I'd also like to echo Matt's point that it does look like 4 from 6. I think with Burton and Shrewsbury, they actually started the season as 2 of the worst sides in the division, but since the changes of managers, they've really been transformed. So I don't see anyone other than those 6 teams at the bottom going down.
Yeah, I think we'll go on to talk about our relegation and sort of promotion predictions in a minute. But I've got a quick question here, which is definitely not to me and Matt, to Gab and Sean. Question for the Hacks regarding press and photo passes for League One games. Why are data codes so difficult to deal with? When I apply for one match pass, they consistently say no, I can't have one. I'm shooting pics for Instagram, which fans would do anyway on iPhones, and I'm using old vintage film cameras to do retro type stuff. They seem to be complete jobs worth polite objective. I don't know if you can shed any light on that, but it's a question we've been asked, so I'm going to put it to you.
I mean, mine goes officially through the Pros International channel, so I'm not sure on individual match passes, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, moving on. So to just quickly sort of spend a few minutes just talking to you both, Sean and Gab. We'll start with you, Gab. Just talk to the viewers and the listeners when this goes out as the audio podcast. How did you get into sort of journalism, and is it something you always wanted to do? And where do you see yourself in the future?
Yeah, it is definitely something I've always wanted to do. I guess it started when I first started writing a website in around 2014, and off the back of that, I sort of had some projects where I interviewed fans of different clubs and put together some written content for myself. And yeah, gradually the website sort of grew, called the Football Lab. And then I think off the back of that, a couple of years afterwards, it had a reasonable amount of success. And then I think from there I've started to gain offers from various different websites, and I think it varies really in terms of getting into journalism. It's kind of really, I think, hard work and being able to put the hours in, which I'm quite lucky in lots of ways because I've had a really supportive family that's allowed me the platform to kind of put some time towards working towards what I wanted to do. Whereas if you're under pressure to earn instantly, then it's a very difficult to make a career out of it. So I think in short, I've been very fortunate, but it's also about lots of hard work and also being open to opportunities and being able to spot things like that. So yeah, very lucky, but a lot of hard work as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. And what do you ideally want to be doing in terms of journalism in the future? Is it just continuing and growing, or is it have you got a specific goal in mind?
Sure. I think I really enjoy writing about the EFL, and that's the bulk of my work at the moment. I've set up a show called the EFL Fan Show, which is a Periscope, and I'm looking to kind of expand that and maybe get a bit more into video content, because as much as I enjoy writing, I enjoy talking to football fans like yourselves, and yeah, it'd be great to see if I can work my way towards broadcasting as a career. That'd be great as well. So yeah, writing and broadcasting, really.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Sean, same goes to you. I know you've recently been appointed at sort of Bros, but what does your journey look like and where do you want to go?
Well, yeah, similar to Gabriel, I've always sort of seen it as something that I want to do. I sort of put it off for a few years. I was just in full-time work, and then sort of went. This year was the year that I was really going to go for it. So I started uni at UCLan, doing my first year sports journalism. So I'm still in my first year at uni now. I think in terms of where I want to go with it, what I've learned so far is that never to close off a channel where you feel like you might not be the best at, or you might not want to do that, because once you actually open those avenues and start to go into it, you realize that you start to really enjoy that. I'm generally on the writing side of things similarly as well. Obviously, I'm writing for Prost at the moment. I also write for a Spanish football website and an Argentinian football website as well on the side. And just really, it's just being consistent with my work, keep going and there may be a day where you wake up and realize you've got 2 or 3 articles you need to do, but if you press through and get them done and then go on to the next thing and keep building and building, then you realize that it becomes more of a hobby than a chore.
No, that's awesome, and really good work from both of you. Matt, do you have any questions for Gabriel or Sean?
No, I think they've covered everything. It's good to sort of listen to people that are doing it professionally, so to speak, rather than us amateurs that are doing it and just chatting into my phone, so to speak. But it's we all do it our own different way, don't we? And it's always interesting and learning from different types of journalists, pundits, whatever we want to label ourselves. And obviously I've had more dealings with Gabe than Sean, but obviously I'm sure Sean's work's brilliant as well. But I can't speak too highly of Gabe, apart from when he puts tweets out at the weekend and then leaves me to take pelters.
To put some context.
And you set yourself up for that, Matt, I think.
I did not. You set it up lovely, and then you just disappeared off the face of the earth for 24 hours.
Yeah, the fact you didn't reply to that tweet and left Matt to absolutely have a shield and a little stick to hold down the opposition fans. For those that you don't know, Gabe put a tweet out just to say Steve Evans said Gillingham have got the smallest budget in League One, which will make many lower leagues or lower bit smaller clubs laugh a bit. And then it just got an absolute barrage of tweets from your smaller clubs, including, I think Andy Holt got involved at Accrington, didn't he?
There was something indirectly that I'd seen Andy Holt got involved in with the price of football, but there was one particular supporter of another northern club that I won't mention that was like a dog with a bone, bless him. But we all protect our own club, don't we? And like I said on social media, and I tweeted out at the time, Steve Evans is doing it for a reason and one reason only, and that's to get under the skin of other managers and other teams and other fan bases and to give our players an edge. Because all he's trying to do is make us feel like we're the underdog, that we have to work a little bit harder to achieve stuff. And it's working. And like I mentioned to Gabe as well, I said this supposed low budget wasn't an issue to anyone back in November, December, where we couldn't buy a win and weren't scoring enough goals and we're sitting 15th. But now, because little Gillingham are bloody in the nose of a few more fancy teams like Lincoln and Portsmouth and Charlton, suddenly what we spend or don't spend's become a massive issue. But it's all good fun, and if it's all done the right way, it's all part of social media banter or whatever we call it, whatever the kids call it, and I enjoy it as long as it's done the right way.
They call it football Twitter. It's actually a thing. If you look it up, it's actually all sorts. And he's just put a comment in here. So these sort of things make such a refreshing change to the national media's obsession with the boring chess game that is the Premier League. I couldn't agree more. It is. Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cheers. That's a good comment, Andy. And Les Smith, just relating back to what you were saying, Sean, about deadlines. I think that I've learned in my brief cricket writing career that the deadline is your friend. The closer it gets, the better you write. I don't know if you agree with that. I'm not sure, but
I would, yeah.
Awesome. So thanks for your comments, guys. Keep getting them in. We're going to talk about the form guide now, and we're going to hand you back over to the amazing Matt. And we're going to talk about the form guide. And I still don't think I can predict the playoffs, but we're going to give it a crack, guys, and get your comments in, because it's a tough one to crack, both relegation and playoffs. But we're going to get this up on the screen now. Matt's going to talk us through a little bit of the form guide and where his thoughts lie, and the rest of us.
Thank you, John. That's big enough. I can see that. Yeah, it's. I think it's pretty much true to form. The top two, if you look at that, I think that's pretty understandable. Whole top of the league at the moment for a reason. With 5 wins and a draw from their last 6, they was absolutely flying, and I think that probably makes that a better result for Shrewsbury at the weekend as well. And they weren't too far away from actually picking up all 3 points. And such as the funny world of football. I think it was an ex-Shrewsbury Player of the Year that scored the equaliser, wasn't it, in Doherty, which is always an interesting turn of events and comes back to bite you on the arse a little bit. Sunderland, as we've said, absolutely flying. 4 wins, bookended by 2 draws. But like we said, the draw against Lincoln wasn't a poor draw. Gilles third. Look at that. Whew, who'd have thought it, eh? That's really good. We'll talk about that for a few minutes. So that's the reason we're knocking on the door of the playoffs. I still think we've probably left ourselves just a little bit too much to do the start of the season. But because look, we've got 4 home games that are probably all winnable on paper. I think it's Shrewsbury, Northampton, Wigan and Plymouth. But even if we win all of them, we then got to try and find probably 6 to 8 points on the road. And we've still got to go to Hull, to Peterborough, to Burton, to Blackpool. So it's going to be tough and to Hull this Saturday, obviously, as well. But if we can go to Hull and get a positive result, who knows? We're still in there fighting. Burton's unbelievable run finally came to an end, but they're still playing really well. Fleetwood, like we've already mentioned, I think Sean and Gabe have spoke highly of Simon Grayson's work. They're doing really well, aside from that odd defeat at the weekend. Charlton, change of manager gives them a chance. Patton says that they should win their next game, looking at the last 6 where they've gone win, draw, win, draw, win, draw. Blackpool, we've spoken about them already, haven't we, Tom, in terms of games in hand, but they're going to be tough. My only concern with Blackpool is the fact that you're going to be playing pretty much Saturday, Tuesday, right way through now till the end of the season. But you've got a decent enough squad with good quality and good cover, so they've got to be right in the mix. MK Dons, Gabe touched on them. I think in terms of this season, it's probably too late to surmount a challenge for the playoffs, but they're in good form. Oxford, a bit in and out. I backed them a few weeks ago, either them or Ipswich to gate crash the top 6, but their form looks a little bit patchy for me at the moment. Peterborough's a strange one because they don't seem to have been out the top 2 for ages, but their form is all over the show at the moment. There's a lot of multicoloured bits in there. If we go down further to the bottom clubs rather than just the ones in the middle, Plymouth ended that horrendous losing streak with a win at the weekend. Rochdale, I can't work Rochdale out. For me, they go down because they go through these spells where they score loads. I think it was on Quest at the weekend. They've scored 3 goals in games at home on 4 occasions this season, but haven't won any of them. And you can't concede that amount of goals and not win football. You can't score that amount of goals and continually fail to win football matches. So for me, they're going to end up bottom. Portsmouth tells you why they sacked Kenny Jackett, but then there's a bit of green right away after Danny Cowley comes in. So I'd imagine they'll start rising up that form table pretty quickly. Lincoln, another one of the good sides in the division, but struggling at the moment. And Ipswich as well, I think, is probably the other one to take note of in terms of Paul Cook. I think we all thought they'd have a bit more of a bounce when he came in, but it's not really taken off yet. Lost to Gillingham, lost their last 2. And have only picked up a single victory. So yeah, it's the magic of League One, like we've already mentioned. There's plenty of weird results in every round of fixtures, and it's why we all love watching it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we're gonna bring Sean and Gabe in now to talk about sort of the playoff chase and the relegation chase. We're just going to get the table up. Sean, we'll start with you. We'll talk about the party side of the table first, although this is very difficult to call. It's probably looking at the table. If you just scroll down a little bit, please. I think, Oxford have played 2 more games than Blackpool, but they're still a really good footballing side. And with 9 games to go, they can still do something with 27 points. But what's your thoughts on the top 6, and who do you think is going to mount a late challenge?
Yeah, well, obviously, every single time you come back and have a look at this, there's either been a managerial change or something big's happened where it completely throws off your initial predictions. I think I've probably changed it about 7 times now in the past month or so. Obviously, Nigel Adkins is coming at Charlton. Charlton, for me, were one of the ones that were going to fall off a cliff at the back end of the season were it not for that change. Now, really, you think about it, Nigel Adkins is a fantastic manager, and you've got, as we said before, we've got so many goal scorers in their side and so many good players at their disposal that you've got to think that they'll be up there. I think Andy Butler, after an initial good start, after Darren Moore left, is probably falling and fading now. And I think that Doncaster, although they've got a couple of games in hand, I think if you look at that top 6, they're probably the weakest side in there, and I'd probably say in the top 10 as well, alongside probably Ipswich. Obviously, Paul Cook's not had that big bounce that we were expecting as well. Blackpool are the team for me at this point in time. They're the ones that are going to make the charge to the playoffs. I really can't see how, especially after that win away at Oxford. Obviously, they've got a few big games coming up soon, but I just think that they're on such a good run of form, and they're showing despite the fact that they've got a number of key figures out and key injuries and a change in formation, they've got such a good squad that they're able to cope with these sort of offsets of the season. And you've got to think that they'll be one of the strongest challengers. I think Sunderland win the league as well. I think that Lee Johnson's got, I know there's another podcast that call him Streaky Lee. I think he's on another one of those runs, which he does. And I think that if you look at Hull and Peterborough, they've got the capability in them to sort of go on, as Peterborough have been doing recently, a bit of a wobbly run. And I think Sunderland are going to be too consistent for those places.
And yeah, no, I don't disagree with much. Something keeps telling me that Hull will still have enough to get promoted, because I think Peterborough are going to have a little wobble, and the quality that Hull have, and I just, something still tells me that they're going to do it, but we'll see. Gabriel, your thoughts on the top six? Do you think there's going to be change in the top two as well?
I would probably echo Sean's thoughts about Sunderland coming into the top two. I'd probably disagree with him on who would drop out. I would probably have Peterborough finishing in the playoff places, because I feel like they can only play well in one half of football. I feel like there's quite a big gap in quality between what they've got in the front three, Smodic, Dembele, Johnson, Clark, Harris, and maybe the rest of the team. So I think what you're seeing is periods where they're quite disjointed, and then periods when they are able to get into the final third regularly, and that front three just destroys teams, as Matt knows all too well. But I think in terms of the playoff places, I would be a little bit worried about Doncaster, because they've got Andy Butler in charge, and he's coming in from the cold, pretty much straight from his playing career. Doesn't really have an experienced assistant or a director of football to lean on, and I think that makes things a bit tricky. So I would say that Portsmouth have a good chance of getting into the top six, and possibly Blackpool as well.
Matt, can you predict the top six?
No, in a word. I've already told you that. I'm going to go with Sean on this one. I still think Sunderland and Peter will be the top two. I backed Peterborough at the start of the season, so I'm going to have to stick my neck out and continue to say that Peterborough will just win the league from Sunderland. I think Hull have their wobble, and I think they'll just drop into the playoffs. Agree regarding Doncaster after watching them at the weekend. Credit to them for coming back into it after going 2-0 down after 4 minutes. That shows a lot of mental fortitude for me. But Andy Butler, inexperienced as a manager, I think might end up costing them. Lincoln, form's really patchy, as we've already spoken about. There's potential for them to fall out as well, but they might just have too many points on the board to actually fall out of the top six. But I think in terms of those that are in contention, we probably go no lower than Accrington. They've got a couple of games in hand over Charlton. I think that's probably from them upwards if anyone's going to try and mount a challenge. But again, not to sound like I'm copying Sean, but I think Blackpool, based on form and the fact that they've got the most games in hand over pretty much everyone, gives them as good a chance as anyone of getting into that top six. Charlton, I'm not sure because of Nigel Atkins. Like I say, it's an intriguing one for me, like I mentioned earlier, because of the fact that he's completely different to Lee Bowyer, and it's just interesting to see how the players respond to that. I'm sure they'll be fine. And again, if they don't get in the playoffs this season, they'll be a big threat next season for sure.
I think someone in those, Josh, I think it was, he's put, if I was to pick a team I don't want to play at the moment, it's Gillingham. I completely agree with him, and I disagree with a lot of people on social media. I do think they play decent football, and they've got the players to play football on the floor, and they've got some real big goal-scoring threats. And as we spoke about on Twitter as well, Matt, that Dean Oliver's a permanent fixture in Team of the Week, so it might as well be 10 plus for Dane Oliver every single week at the moment. So he's causing some big problems, and if he carries on the way it is, there's no reason why, with how many games we've got, although a bit less than others, that he can't keep picking up wins. And with your home games,
the thing with us as Gills, it's in our hands. We've still got to go to Hull, like I said. We've still got to go to Peterborough. So if we can go there and pick up points and we can win our own games, we're going to have a great chance. But it's like there's just that nagging thing with Gills, is that we just left ourselves a little bit much to do with our inconsistencies in the first half of the season. Since the January transfer window, we've been as good as anything in the league, and I'm not saying that with my Gillingham hat on. I'm trying to say that with an unbiased hat on, and you only have to look at the form guides to to show that and back that up. We've been absolutely superb. The signings that have come in have really improved us. The Ollie Lees, I know he's not been in the side the last couple. Callum Slattery before he got injured. Robbie Cully's given Jack Tucker a regular partner, and suddenly we look a lot better. We're still not keeping enough clean sheets, but that's going to happen when you've got 2 centre-backs that are 22 and below. And the oldest player we've got in that back four is Ryan Jackson. Everyone else is 27 and under, including the keeper. But Stuart O'Keefe's been a massive plus getting back fit before the end of the season. He's been absolutely superb. There was one tackle in the Lincoln game last week. Absolutely rattled Liam Bridcut in the first couple of minutes, I think it was, and set the tone. And from there, we were absolutely brilliant. And it'll be nice to keep bloodying a few noses, like I say, little old Gillingham ruffling a few feathers. But I think, sadly, we'll just miss out.
Yeah, a comment from Alan here. The biggest problem for Blackpool is going to be fatigue.
Totally agree.
If players come back from injury, we've got about 6 players out still, and another injury today, Matty Virtue. So fingers crossed he's not out for a long time. Richard's looking forward to the Swindon Paul game on April 2nd. I've got a press pass for that one. So hopefully Paul beat the Robins. It's going to be team that sneaks in that a winner. You'd take Lincoln and Donny in the playoffs. That's from Josh. And then Matt Smith, as I've just alluded to, is injury after injury at Blackpool. Guys, just a very quick 2-minute summary, or if that, or 1 minute summary on who you think is going down. For me, I think Wigan stay up, and I'm going to call it now. I think Bristol Rovers are going to go down. Sean?
I've gone with Wimbledon, Swindon, Northampton and Rochdale going down. I've never really been a fan of John Sheridan, and I think ultimately, despite that win at Fleetwood, it'll start to go back to the same sort of run that they've been on, because there's such an over-reliance on Brett Pittman and Scott Twine to sort of their individual qualities to dig them out of a hole, rather than having that structure to their play. I like Wimbledon, what they're doing with Mark Robinson. I think their style of play has been adapted and they look a lot better on the ball. And I think, to be honest, if they keep him and go into League Two and try and change their style of play from what they've been doing, I think it could do them a favour in the long run, being able to build that back up and then go again and have a real go at League One. But yeah, that's my bottom 4.
Gab?
I'm going to go with the bottom 2 teams being the 2 teams to stay up. I think Rochdale putting in a really good performance at Lincoln and coming very close to getting back-to-back wins against Peterborough. I think that's a massive couple of results for them, and I do think they've got goals in them. So I'm going to say Rochdale are going to stay up, and I'd echo Sean's thoughts. I like Mark Robinson at AFC Wimbledon. Northampton, I think the 4 goals against Portsmouth was a little bit of a flash in the pan. Perhaps their home goal scoring issue has been massive for them this season. Wigan, I'd like to see stay up, but I don't quite think they'll have enough. Bristol Rovers, I think there's a mentality issue there, and I'm not sold on John Sheridan. So Rochdale and AFC Wimbledon, although they're the bottom 2 teams at the moment, I think they're the ones that are going to stay up.
You heard it here, fans. Rochdale, Wimbledon. If you don't go up, don't stay up, it's Gab's fault. Matt, is your mind changed? I know you said you changed your mind quite a lot about it, but
pretty much after every set of fixtures, yeah, because like we've mentioned earlier, Swindon looked doomed, and we beat them last Saturday and were absolutely comfortable. I mean, I know they took the lead, but the conditions were awful first half, and we was playing into a gale. And as soon as we got the level up, their confidence just completely folded, and it was quickly 2-1 and quickly 3-1, and then we just saw it out really easily. So they've still got problems, but they've given themselves a chance. Bristol Rovers, I worry about the Joey Barton thing, like the Paul Cook thing. It's not really happened, has it? And I think the interview that he's put together today for the Bristol Post, where he's come out and absolutely annihilated his captain, Max Amar, in the press, and saying that he's still making the same mistakes now that he did when they was together at QPR as a kid, and he's not captain material, he's not a leader, he's not vocal. He wasn't vocal or a leader in that sense at Gills, but he was a leader in the sense that he was playing well. So obviously it becomes harder to be that type of captain when the team's struggling. So I fear for Bristol Rovers. I just think Barton's taking a massive risk by going that public and going that far in on a captain. Is Max Amar going to want to play for him now? Are other people going to play for him? So I'm worried about them. Regarding Rochdale and Wimbledon, I think they'll still go down. Rochdale, I know, score lots, but they concede far too many. 67 in the goals against Fulham's a huge problem for me. So the bottom 2 and then any 2 from 4, but I'd love Wigan to stay up, like I keep saying.
yeah.
So I've been very non-committal, sorry.
That's all right. We'll change our mind on next Monday's show. Talking on next Monday's show, we're going to be reviewing as we do fixtures. So we've got a few fixtures tomorrow, and we've got a big set of fixtures on Saturday. So I was going to get the fixtures up on the screen now, so we can talk about them. So tomorrow, the biggest game for me, actually, obviously being a Blackpool fan, Blackpool Peterborough is massive, but Bristol Rovers and Swindon for me is that the most horrible game you don't want to watch, and it's probably going to be a 0-0 because both teams aren't going to want to lose. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say Bristol Rovers turn it around at home if they can defend. But that's my prediction for that game. Blackpool Peterborough I can't call, so I'll leave that one with either Matt or Gab. Burton Shrewsbury and Northampton Oxford, and then Friday we've got Oxford Lincoln. Just to touch upon sort of the Blackpool Peterborough game, Sean, where are your thoughts at with that one?
Well, obviously I'll be there tomorrow night, and I think that Blackpool are going to win that game. I think Blackpool are going to win that game. I think that Peterborough obviously have had a bit of a wobble, but I think it's more about the confidence Blackpool are taking into that game. I think they need to win at home now after they've had a few draws as well. But you look at Bloomfield Road, they've not lost there since October. I think Dan Ballard being out will be a big miss at the back, and it'll be interesting to see if Daniel Gretterson gets thrown straight back in. I know he's fit. He missed Oxford because of the birth of his child. So if they can keep that structure at the back, which they've been able to do no matter what defensive partnership they've had this season, you've got to think that Blackpool will win that game.
Yeah. Any other fixtures that stand out for you there, Gabe?
It's, I think you've obviously got Northampton against Oxford, the Chris Wilder derby, if you like, which is going to be an interesting one. I obviously think both teams are going to need the points for different reasons in that one. Northampton, obviously in desperate need of a victory, and Oxford have to keep up their playoff challenge. I might slightly disagree on Bristol Rovers Swindon. I'm not sure that it's about drawing. I think in League Two, there's only 2 relegation spots, so draws are much better if you're a side struggling in League Two. But I think in League One, because there's 4 teams going down, I don't think draws are enough. So I think both teams will see it as an opportunity to get points against a relegation.
Fair enough. No, it's a good chat. I think Bristol Rovers will sneak. I think the way they played at Aki showed they can score goals, and if Swindon get off to a good start, then Bristol Rovers could run right. Because they've got some decent sort of attacking players as well. We'll start off. Yeah, we'll move on to Saturday's fixture. Sorry. So we've got Wimbledon, Northampton. That's another massive game down at the bottom. So some big games in the next 2 sort of set of fixtures. We've got Blackpool, Plymouth, Bristol Rovers, Sunderland again. That's a massive game for Bristol Rovers, and if they don't defend, then that could be, a big score for Sunderland. Hull City, Gillingham, that's a massive game for you, Matt. MK Dons, Doncaster, again, that's going to be a decent game for MK Dons to play at home. They're on good form at the moment. Peterborough, Accrington, Stanley, see that as a routine home win potentially with the ability they've got, but Aki are resilient. Shrewsbury, Portsmouth, Wigan, and Ipswich. So any fixtures there that stand out for you guys? Let's start off with you, Matt.
Yeah, I picked out a couple. I forgot about the Friday night one. I think that's a huge game as well. Basically, after what Gabe said about Oxford needing to keep the momentum for their playoff push, I think if they could get a positive result in the week and then go and get something at home to Lincoln, that could give them some confidence for the running. So I think they've got a really big week coming up. And at the same time, if they could beat Lincoln, Lincoln's form continues to slide and they'll be looking over their shoulder a little bit more anxiously than they already are. I picked out a couple more. I think Shrewsbury Pompey will be an intriguing one. I think after Shrewsbury's draw with Hull last weekend, I think that'll be a good test for Danny Cowley to see where his team really is and where they are in terms of the top 6. Steve Cotterill, I know he's back home again now, so best wishes to Steve from all of us, I think, and it's great to see him recovering again for the second time from long COVID. And the last one, I've gone for AFC Wimbledon against Northampton, I think it is, isn't it, as well? Did I see? Yeah, that's absolutely huge. That's got the definition of 6-pointer written all over it for me.
Yeah.
Just other than what Matt spoke about, Sean, you got one fixture that stands up for you for Saturday?
Yeah, I'd probably say the Wimbledon game. I think that's a massive game for them at home if they're going to have any chance of surviving. I think they play some good football, and I think that Northampton probably won't have enough of them, and it could quite easily get away from them. I'd probably just also touch on Portsmouth against Shrewsbury, because I think Portsmouth are going to win the games by the odd goal. I don't think they're going to blow away a side, and I think it's important to put in a good performance and get 3 points against a side like Shrewsbury, which has always been a tough place to go since Cotterill's gone back there.
Yeah, I agree. And just finally, so the best till last, Gab, and any fixtures on Saturday that you think is going to be a decent game other the ones we've mentioned?
Well, worth flagging up Wigan against Ipswich. This will be the first time that Paul Cook returns to his former club since leaving. It's unfortunate that he wasn't able to build on his time with Wigan, and maybe they could be pushing for promotion in the Championship this season had financial issues not happened. But good to see that Wigan could be okay if the Bahraini takeover happens. They'll be able to get funds to run the club properly, hopefully. And they can start moving forward. But certainly a sentimental factor in that going back to Wigan.
Awesome. Well, that leaves me just to say thank you very much. We'll start with you, Gab. Thank you for coming on. It's been really good to have you on and hear your insight on the EFL.
It's my pleasure, folks. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. Sean, thank you very much.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Matt, as usual, thank you. It's been awesome. Really
Pleasure
good
as
show.
always.
All that leaves me to say is please like and subscribe to the Seasiders Pod, who are our kind hosts. Please subscribe to their YouTube channel because you'll get an alert to say when we go live on a Monday, and see some other good shows during the week as well. And please follow us on Twitter, where it just hit 650 followers on the third tier. So it'd be really, really decent to keep that growing and make these live shows bigger. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel that'll be launching for next season as well. And we'd greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much.